Hey everyone, ahlan wa sahlan fikum. So today we're going to talk about the word bid and all the different ways that you can do it. You're probably wondering though, why am I sitting at my desk? And the reason is because we're going to talk about bid by putting it actually in context. And we're going to take a look at one of the scenes in one of my annotated transcripts where you see the word a few times. So we're going to use that to talk about all the different ways that you can use bid. But first, I'm just going to give a little bit of a summary. So basically, there's two main ways that you can use bid, like grammatically speaking. You can use it with a verb after, so to modify a verb, such as like, biddi atla, for example. And you can also use it as a verb in itself, like especially sort of modifying a noun. Well, not modifying a noun, but taking a noun as an object. So when you use it with a verb, it means mainly I want to do something. So for example, biddi atla means I want to leave or go up or however you translate that. So biddi atla means I want to do that. Or it can have potentially a future tense meaning. So if I say biddi aruh, it can mean I want to go, or it could also mean I will go. It just depends on the context. But I would say that the main definition is to want. That's always sort of how I define bid, because, which by the way, you would never say it by itself. You would never say bid, but I'm saying it like that now because just, I don't know, it's sort of a general term, but in reality, you would always have a suffix after that. So anyway, as for with nouns or just as a verb in itself, what it means is to want, right? So that's where the meaning is the same, right? So I want to do something or I want something, right? So biddi mai would be like I want water, right? But there's actually another potential meaning when you use it with a noun. Obviously, it has nothing to do with future tense because that's for verbs. Rather, when you say biddi something, like let's say again biddi mai, it can mean either I want something or I need something. So in Arabic, or at least in Palestinian Arabic, the way to say I need something is actually using biddi for like 90% of things. Actually, there is a verb to need, ahtaj, but it's really not as common. Like, well, for like a lot of sort of basic interactions and basic things, really bid is used, biddi, biddak, biddu, and so on. But technically, yeah, biddi mai could be like I want water or I need water. But as we're going to see in the text, based on what it is that you're referring to, it's usually pretty clear, like that you mean more like it's a really necessary thing, or you just like want it. I mean, obviously, if I'm talking about like my phone, it's like let's say like biddi telephone jadid. It's like it's not really I need a new phone. I mean, otherwise, I mean, yeah, it doesn't really mean that. It means just like I want one. Of course, it's kind of subjective. I mean, maybe some people feel like they need a new phone, but I think, yeah, so maybe it's a little bit up to interpretation. But basically, what we're going to do next is we're going to actually take a look at the scene. I will say I mean, so this is going to kind of double as the first part of the fourth annotated transcript, but I don't think, I mean, it's not even the first part. It's just like the first scene. But they say bid a lot in different kind of situations, so I thought that I would use this chance to talk about that. But if you really want, you can kind of skip ahead, although they pretty much start saying it right around the midpoint of the like just 1 minute scene, so you might as well just kind of stay, I think. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started. All right, here we go. Let's see. All right, so this is actually not the beginning. Actually, I have to admit, I recorded this video, but actually already, and I did the whole thing, and it stopped recording for some reason, like after like 3 minutes. So actually, I just recorded 3 minutes, and then the rest I just talked to myself for like 30 minutes or however long. So I did a practice take. Anyway, now we can actually read through it again together. And the name of this episode is انتبه يا سند, which means like pay attention, sanad. Anyway, as usual, I'm just going to read through it. Again, it's a very short part, I guess. And I'm just going to read through it, and then I'm going to go back and go through it line by line. But I'm going to really speed through a lot of it because if you've been watching the other annotated transcript videos, you should already kind of be familiar with some of these expressions and things. So anyway, سالي احذري شو صار معي اليوم. شو؟ اليوم وديع كان بمشي بالصف بتخوت علي بصوت عالي عملوا هالو كول. طنشته لف لقى المس بوجهه. أما شو تبهدلك بهدلة؟ طبعا وانت شايف المس، ما هو عشان هيك طنشته أصلا. شوف ما أهلاها. أخ أنت وهوسك بالحيوانات. And then a car comes by. مرحبا يا شطور. And the man in the car starts talking to Samad. شو اسمك؟ أنت من أنت ساكن هون؟ عمو اسمي سند. وين بيتك؟ بيتي بالشارع هناك. عم بدور على صيدلية. ابني مريض كثير وبده دواء ضروري. بتعرف صيدلية قريبة؟ أكيد في صيدلية في الشارع الثاني. يعني بتلف من هون وبترجع تدخل يمين. مريت كثير من هذاك الشارع. شو رأيك تيجي معي تفرجيني وين؟ وأنا برجع لك بعدين. And then Sally comes and then the car drives away. سند شو مالك؟ مين هدول وشو بدهم فيك؟ فضحتيني كأني ولد صغير عم لحالك المحقق كونان. يا حرام الزلمة ابنه مريض وبده يعني أدله على الصيدلية. سند أنت ما بتعرفهم، كيف كنت بدك تطلع معهم بالسيارة؟ يعني يموت ابنه وهو بدور على صيدلية؟ ليه بتدور الأخت الكبيرة؟ خفي علينا. طيب يلا بلاش نتأخر والماما تقلق علينا. بس نفسي أفهم كيف كنت راح تطلع معهم. Okay, so let's go back. Again, I'm going to kind of breeze through this a little bit. Okay, so Sally, احذري, this means, the verb is to guess, so guess because he's saying to female, so you female, imperative. Guess شو صار, what happened, معي is with me, but in this case it's to me. So guess what happened to me اليوم. شو, what? اليوم, so today, وديع, someone's name, كان بمشي, was walking, بالصف, in the class. بتخوت علي, so بتخوت means to mock. على is to, or yeah, to, but in this case it has a suffix. The suffix here is the yeah. So for me, and it's pronounced علي. So بتخوت علي, it means he was making fun of me, mocking me. بصوت عالي. So there's no word for loudly actually in the dialect at least. So what you say is in a high voice. So صوت is voice and عالي means like high basically. So in a high voice or loudly. عمل حاله cool. Okay, cool. But عمل حاله means he acted or pretended to be a certain way. So عمل means to make, and حاله is like saying himself, right? So he made himself out to be cool. You know, he was acting cool. Okay, طنشته, I ignored him. لف, he turned around. لف, لقى, he found. He turned and found. المس بوجهه. وجه his face, so he turned around and found the miss, the teacher, in his face. أما شو تبهدلك بهدلة. Not very important. Amma is like, you know, it's just kind of, yeah. Bahdal means to scold. So here he's saying, tabahdal is she scolds, right? How she scolds, you, lek. So there's bahdal and then there's an additional lek. So that's why there's shadda on the lam. Tabahdal lek bahdale. And bahdal is the noun, meaning scolding. So it's just kind of emphatic. Bahdal lek bahdale. How she gives you a scold, how she scolds you a scolding. Anyway, and then she says طبعا, which means of course. وانت شايف المس. شاف means he saw. شايف means he is seeing. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it's used very commonly, like is seeing, even though it translates kind of weirdly in English. But yeah, and you were seeing the teacher, and you saw the teacher, when that was happening. So you knew that would happen. ما هو, remember, ma is just emphasizes again the rest of the sentence. So that's why I added the word exactly, because the word exactly is not actually in the sentence, but it's sort of emphasizing. So that's exactly why. ما هو عشان هيك, that's why. So that's exactly why. ما هو عشان هيك طنشته أصلا. أصلا again means like to begin with. So that's exactly why I ignored him. So to begin with, like as it was all happening. Oops. And then she says, she sees this. Oh yeah, she sees a cat. That's why she starts saying all this. Yeah, so she sees a cat and she says, "Yee," like, oh, "Shuf ma ahlaha." Remember, I mentioned this in my last video, my last transcript video. So to say how cute or how nice or how delicious or how whatever, what you do is you have ma, and then you have the comparative form plus the suffix of whatever you're referring to. So there's those three parts: ma, ahla, and then plus the suffix ma ahlaha. So ma ahlaha, how cute she is. Sanad says, oops. Anti وحوسك. Hawas is like an obsession. So you and your obsession بالحيوانات, with animals. And then the car drives by. He says, مرحبا يا شطور. Shatur is diminutive form of shatir. Shatir means smart or skilled. It's something that you might say to a kid. So yeah, like, good boy, Shatur is diminutive of that. So it's like being extra sweet. That doesn't really exist in English, so it's hard to compare. But for example, actually, the name Muhammad, a common diminutive for this is Hammoude. So that's actually a pattern in Arabic. So Hammoude, Shatur, this pattern is just being extra sort of sweet, and sort of extra nice, and sort of indicating kind of closeness, right? So in this case, it's supposed to be kind of creepy because it's a stranger, right? So Shu Ismak, what's your name? Enta sakin hon, do you live here? Ammu. Ammu, remember, means his uncle, but it's just a way of saying like Mr. or just referring to someone, sort of in general. Ismi Sanad, my name is Sanad. Wain Beitak, where's your house? Beiti بالشارع هناك, my house is on the street over there. عم بدور, remember, am emphasizes a current action, so I'm looking, or بدور is I'm searching. So I'm searching right now على صيدلية, for a pharmacy. So بدور على, I'm looking for pharmacy. ابني مريض كثير, my son is مريض, sick, is very sick. وبده دواء ضروري. Okay, so first of all, what is the word ضروري? ضروري means necessary, or like essential, like, yeah, something necessary, right? So here we see an example where obviously, so dawa is medicine, right? Here we see an example where obviously the biddu means he needs and not he wants. How do we know? Well, first of all, we're talking about dawa, which is medicine. So do you want medicine or do you need medicine? I mean, you probably need it, right? As opposed to just sort of wanting it as just like a whim. Whereas like you can use biddu to talk about whims. You can say like, oh, I want a new phone. But you can also use it to talk about things that are truly necessary. To be honest, here you could have very well used the actual verb ahtaj, which means to need, especially because it is truly something that you need, medicine. But it's perfectly fine to use biddu, and I think it's really emphasized that the meaning is to need because of the word dururi. Dururi means essential or necessary. So actually, biddu dawa dururi. I mean, I wrote essential medicine rather than necessary medicine, which is maybe what dururi is. Normally I would translate dururi as necessary, but then it would be like he needs necessary medicine. That's so redundant, right? But in Arabic it's kind of not redundant because biddu could potentially means want. So it's obviously they're different words, right? So it's not like needs necessary medicine. It's not redundant like that. And in fact, you could have said, and he wants necessary medicine. Well, that sounds kind of weird too, isn't it? So anyway, the fact that this here means need, he needs, is pretty much made clear by one, what he needs, and two, the fact that you use the word dururi, which means necessary. So yeah, but again, here biddu dawa, it's here you're using biddu as a verb in itself with a noun. So in another circumstance, I could have said, biddi telephone, and there it would of course more likely mean, I want a phone, as opposed to I need a phone. In fact, I would say that if I like really needed a phone for, let's say I want to say like I need a phone for work, then I would actually use the verb ahtaj, because you're sort of you're sort of emphasizing the fact that I need it for a certain reason, right? So you want to make clear that it's not just that I want a new phone; it's that I actually need it for something. So أحتاج, so بحتاج, is what I would say in this case, as opposed to بدي, because then it might sound like بدي تليفون عشان الشغل. Yeah, I mean, then it's more ambiguous. So yeah, it all depends on context. And here, what the speaker chose to do is write or say dururi, and that way it's like makes clear that it's a need and something essential. Okay, next. And sorry, I just want to check that I'm recording. Okay, yeah, just in case. Okay, بتعرف صيدلية قريبة? Do you know a nearby pharmacy? So قريب means nearby. قريبة, because it's feminine. So do you know a nearby pharmacy? أكيد, of course. في, here we have both uses of في, right? في صيدلية, there is a pharmacy. في, in or at or on. الشارع الثاني. So remember, ثاني comes from the word اثنين, which means two. So ثاني, actually all the numbers, in the active participle form, it means like first, second, third. Well, actually not first, but second, third, fourth, and so on. So ثاني, ثالث, خامس, and so on. So, but in this case, it doesn't, it does mean second, but the way that this word is used in the dialect especially is to mean the other. So, تليفوني الثاني is, so تليفوني is my phone. تليفوني الثاني means my other phone. So in this case, الشارع, the street, الشارع الثاني, the other street. So, يعني بتلف من هون. Oh, yeah, now he's giving directions. So, يعني بتلف من هون. So, turn around. Remember, we saw this word earlier. لف لألمس. So, he turned around to find the teacher. Here, بتلف. So, you turn around من هون, from here. وبترجع, and come back. تدخل, to enter, come back in. يمين, on the right. It doesn't really make sense, like, without sort of visually seeing the directions. But, yeah, some of these words are pretty useful to talk about directions, so it's nice to see them. So yeah. Anyway, then he says, the man says, مريت كثير من هذاك الشارع. So هذاك الشارع means that street. Remember, هذا, this, هذاك, that. So, right. And مر is a very nice verb. It means to pass by. It means some other things too, but mainly it means to pass by something. So, so for example, مريت عنده means like I passed by him, like his place, his house. مريت كثير means I passed by a lot من هذاك الشارع, from that street. So anyway, then the man says شو رأيك? Remember, شو رأيك, or yeah, so that means like what is your opinion? رأيه is رأيك, رأيي is all the, like, my opinion, your opinion, his opinion, and so on. So literally means what is your opinion, but it's like how about, or what do you think, and so on. So asking for someone's opinion. So how about تيجي, how about you come معي, with me, فرجيني when. So فرجة means to show. So تفرجيني, so that you show me when. So what do you think, or how about you come with me and show me where the pharmacy is. وأنا برجع لك بعدين. Remember from my video on time, بعدين means later. So comes from بعد, which means after. So I just wanted to mention رجع. It's a nice verb because we know رجع means to return. But رجع means I returned, or رجعت means I returned. So it's intransitive because I'm the one who's returning. Now, this is in form 2. This isn't رجع. This is رجع with a shadda on the jim. Because it's form 2. And usually what form 2 means, as in this case, it means it's a transitive verb, which means it's an action that I'm doing on something else. So for example, أنا رجعت على البيت means I went back to the house, or I returned to the house. But if I say رجعت تليفونك, it means I returned your phone. I didn't return. I returned something, right? So that's what a form 2 verb does. It means that I'm doing the action on something else rather than me doing the action. So he's saying here, أنا برجع لك بعدين means I will return you after, or bring you back after, basically, rather than I will return, which would be For example, barja'lek would mean I will come back to you. Barajak means I will return you. Do you see what I mean? So there's this difference depending on the form one, form two. Okay, Sally then she comes and the guys run away, or the car. She says, Sanad, okay, Sanad, Shumalik, what's wrong? Remember, Malik, depending on the suffix, it means like what's wrong with you, or what's wrong with them, or him, her, and so on. But not in an accusatory way, like just like what, like what's wrong, like in a genuine way. But here he is kind of annoyed actually, like hey, why are you like screaming or whatever. Anyway, then she says, Min hadol. Here's where we start seeing a lot of bid. Okay, Min hadol. Who are those guys? Ushu bidhom fig. So here, bidhom, again, it doesn't have a noun after, but it is being used as just a plain verb, meaning either to want or to need. So let's ask, which one is it? So, shu bidhom fig. Fig in you, but in this case, I mean, all these prepositions have different uses in Arabic than in English. So obviously in this case, it's not like what do they want or need in you. It's like what do they want from you, or need or want from you. So what do they want from you, or is it what do they need from you? Technically it is subjective. It could be either, but clearly she's being kind of accusatory and like she's annoyed that these strangers came and started talking to Sanad. So what do they need from you sounds a bit too generous. You know what I mean? Like it's like she's probably doesn't think that they really legitimately need something. You know what I mean? She probably is like what they want something from him. They don't need something from him. Do you see what I mean? So again, clearly, as you can see, it's based on context, really. Yeah, and I wanted to mention here also that it does depend on context, and likewise, I'm trying to. I mentioned this when I did the first take. I'm trying to remember how I came into this discussion, but I just want to say that technically, if you say "shu biddak" to, let's say, to you, it can sound very direct and potentially a little bit rude if you are talking to someone who probably you should be very respectful to. Like for example, like an old lady. Like if I was talking to an old lady, I would not say "shubiddak," I think, because I mean it just sounds like very like what do you want? Like it sounds a bit rude. So I would say something else like how can I help you, or something like that, right? So especially in these kind of situations, like if we're talking about like what does someone want from you, or yeah, if you just want to say what do they want, this I mean, okay, what I'm trying to say is that because she's saying "shubidhum," like what do they want, like that's why I translate it as want, because already just based on how she phrased it, it already feels kind of accusatory. Whereas like if it was an old lady that came by and was talking to Sened, um, she may have said shubidha, but especially because she's not talking to the old lady directly. um, but one might use something else, like the verb ahtaj, like to need, right? um, so yeah, if I wanted to say to someone, what do you need? I would not say "shu biddak," even though biddak dawa means you need medicine, or you want medicine, or as I said earlier, it can mean you need medicine. But at the same time, I would not say. I mean, I would not say to someone "shu biddak" and expect that they would understand that as "what do you need," because it just because it just sounds kind of very direct, and the way that it would be interpreted would probably not be as "what do you need," because it sounds kind of very direct. You see what I mean? So just be careful with that one, basically. So biddu can mean he needs, but um, if you are if you're talking to someone directly or that kind of thing, you might prefer to use the actual verb, because otherwise, it might sound kind of too direct, and it might be interpreted as "what do you want" in a kind of potentially rude way, or just say "how can I help you," or something like that. So yeah, usage notes. Anyway, moving on. Then Sanad said, "Fadahtini." Okay, so fadah is to. It literally means like to disgrace or shame someone publicly. and it's related to the word scandal, actually. But in this case, obviously, it means like embarrass me in public, right? So you embarrass me in front of the men. You embarrass me. كأني ولد صغير. ولد صغير, little kid, little boy. كأني, this is a nice word. Actually, it's a combination. Well, you have the word inni, which means that I am. Inno, that he is, or yeah. So inni, that I am. But what is this ka? This ka it means, it's never by itself, but it means as something. So, for example, if I say كطالب, this means as a student, right? Ka, I don't know. Well, anyway, but in this case, كأني is as though I were, or as that I am. I mean, I'm just kind of translating it in a very kind of literal way, but that's what it. So you have the ka of as and inni as that I am. So the way that I translate it here is as if I were. I tend to say more zay كأني, zay meaning as, right? Well, yeah, like. So it's kind of redundant, right? So zay كأني, as though, or yeah, as that I am. Yeah, it is kind of redundant in English, but I do it that way, but كأني is also perfectly fine by itself. So فضحتيني كأني والزيد, you embarrass me in public as though I were a little boy. And then عاملة حالك. Again, we see the same thing as before, acting as though you are, or making yourself out to be. المحقق Conan, Detective Conan is a cartoon character. Anyway, ya haram. Oh yeah, ya haram. This means like this. I translate it as poor guy, but I mean it kind of is like that in a way. It's just whenever there's something like wrong, like that you feel is like, oh, that that's bad. Like you shouldn't do that or something. Because haram is something that's forbidden, right? So yeah, haram is like, that's so bad of you to sort of distrust those men who, because of his boy is sick and whatnot. So you can, but it can be used for many things. Like ya haram, don't waste food. Like don't, it's not something that you should do. That kind of thing. So ya haram, الزلمة, the guy, ابنه مريض, his son is sick. وبده إياني أدله على صيدلية. Okay, I'm going to dwell on this because it's important. There's a few things going on here. Let's do it step by step. Okay, here we actually see bid being used with a verb. Now, remember, that can mean either I will do something, or he or they or whoever will do something, or wants to do something, right? So the way that you make that kind of sentence is you have to have bid with the appropriate conjugation. So if I'm talking about myself, it's biddi, him, biddu. So let's say biddi. So biddi, and then the verb that I'm modifying, the thing that I want to do, of course, it has to be conjugated for me also. So if I want to say I want to go, it has to be biddi aruh. Aruh. It's in the subjunctive, right? But it's conjugated for me. Whereas if I'm going to talk about you, I'm going to say بدك تروح. بدو يروح. So those two, so the بدو and the يروح, those always have to have the same conjugation for the same person, right? To mean either, so in the case of بدي أروح, this means either I want to go or I will go. It can really mean both depending on the context. But what about this case? What's happening here? Let's ignore the word in the middle for a minute. Let's see بدو أدله. So that means to guide someone or to show someone the way to how to go somewhere, to indicate the way. So let's say to guide. So أدله. What's going on here? So first of all, the subject is هو أدله. But notice what's the letter in the beginning? It's alif, because it's for me. So I adillu, I am guiding. So biddu adillu means he wants me to guide him. So what I want to show you is that if it said biddu, let's just use the word ruh because it's kind of simpler. So biddu iruh can mean either he wants to go or he will go. But if I say um, بدو أروح. Well, how could this possibly mean future tense? So if بدو, if he wants, أروح, that I go, or yeah, I mean, it just could never have a future tense meaning because how could it be he will I go? That just doesn't make sense, right? So in order to have a future tense meaning, the biddu and the verb after have to have the same conjugation. Because if they don't, it's just not possible. Like biddi turuh, I will that you go. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm going, you go. It just doesn't make sense, right? So the only way that it can have a future tense meaning is if those two correspond. If they don't correspond, then it can only mean I want you to do something, or he wants me to do something, or whatever combination of those things. So so it always means he wants to do something, or I want to do something, unless possibly it can mean a future tense if the conjugations are the same. But even if the conjugations are the same, it could still mean he wants to go, right? As opposed to he will go. I mean, it just depends on context in that case. But if they're different, as in this case, it just always means he wants. Like there's no other way to interpret that. So biddu adillu, of course, means he wants me to show him to the pharmacy, as opposed to he will that I go, or that I guide him, or whatever. It just doesn't make sense. Now, I'm gonna maybe just say a few things about the word in the middle, because it is relevant to biddi, because it really goes hand in hand a lot of the time. So what is the thing in the middle? It's what is called an object pronoun. What does that mean? Well, how do we usually represent objects in like the object of an action in Arabic? Usually we do it by adding an object suffix, right? So so let's say akaltu. So ana akalit means I ate. Akaltu means I ate it. So the object of the action is indicated by the suffix ha. So ana akaltu, I ate it. But what happens if there's already a suffix on the verb for any other reason? Well, the suffix for the object is the lowest priority for it to be attached to the verb. So what does that mean? Let's give you an example. The verb ba'at means to send. So if I want to say send me, that's ib'at li, and the li is because you're sending it to me. So so if I say send me, that's already, now I've added a suffix for me, right? Ib'at li. So now what if I want to say send it to me? Well, actually, I can't add the object suffix for it, send it to me, because there's already a suffix for me as the recipient of the action. And so the direct object of the action is the lowest priority. So what's going to happen is I'm going to keep ibatli, send to me, but then the object suffix, instead of having a suffix, it's actually going to be an object pronoun. Because just to keep it sort of separate, to detach it, because I can't stack a direct object pronoun to an indirect object. So I can't say ibatli. I don't know. It just doesn't work. Ibatli. Well, it just doesn't sound right. It's better not to do that. So basically, I lost my train of thought. Basically, oh yeah. So in this case, biddu iyani. So the main reason that you'll have to use iya. So iya is the suffix pronoun, but it never just goes by itself. You have to add, the object pronoun, but you always have to add a suffix to it to indicate like who that pronoun is standing in for. So if I say iyani, it's I'm the object pronoun. So it's like saying ana, but not as, because ana is the subject, but iyani is the object. So it's ana, but as an object. So iya with a h at the end, it's just a silent h. But iya with a silent h is huwa, but not as a subject, but as an object. So and then you can have yak, yana, or whatever. And those are all the object pronouns. So basically all you do is add the suffix to the yeah sort of core part. The main time that you'll have to use that is when you have an indirect object pronoun on a verb. So as in ابعت لي yeah, right? But the other main time that you'll use this is with bid. Why? Because most verbs are conjugated like with like prefixes and things like that, or suffixes. So for example, baruh, betruh, well, never mind that. But yeah, so all these different conjugations are based on the suffix. So I shouldn't have used that verb actually, because it's more like رايح. But bumsik, bdimsik, biemsik, nimsik, and so on. It's based on the suffix, right? Or in the past tense, or sorry, prefix, and in the past tense, the suffix. So, رحت, راح, راحت, and so on. But bid is unusual. Why? Because the conjugation is done with a suffix. This is very rare. This is very strange. Only biddu and aindu he has work this way. So these are the only verbs where the conjugation is created using a suffix. That creates a problem. Because what if I want to say, I want it? Well, already the conjugation of I want is done with a suffix, which means I can never just say I want it in a way, like in a very simple way, because I would have to have two suffixes, the one for biddi and then the one for it, right? So the it has to go separate. So if I want to say I want it, I would have to say biddi yeah. So that's why yeah, it goes very hand in hand with biddi, because it's very common that you'll have to sort of if you ever want to have a pronoun for the bid, like the biddi, it's going to have to be a separate word. It can't be a suffix. Never, ever. So that's what's going on here. Now, you may or may not have noticed, it's actually optional in this case. I think it was just used here, the object pronoun, to emphasize that he wants me to do something, but it could just have been biddu adillu. That already means he wants me to guide him. But if what was really said was biddu iyani adillu, he wants me to guide him. Like, it's just really emphasizing that I'm the one that he wants to carry out this action. But it is actually optional in this case. Yeah, but if I did just want to say he wants me, which is kind of a weird sentence, but if I did just want to say he wants me, then it would be biddu yeah. Whereas in this case, it can be biddu iyani is what I meant. Anyway, in this case, it can be biddu iyani adillu or biddu adillu. Either way is fine. The iyani in this case is sort of superfluous actually, but it adds emphasis. Anyway, that was that about that. Kind of important stuff, but yeah. Anyway, now we're almost done though. This is the last bit. Okay, سند أنت ما بتعرفهم. سند, you don't know them. كيف كنت بدك تطلع معهم بالسيارة? How were you going to leave with them in the car? Well, obviously we see bid here, but actually I'm going to go until the end just so we can sort of skip all the parts that we don't need to analyze, and then we'll come back to this because I want to also make a comparison. So let's put that on a little pin in that for a second. Okay, يعني يموت ابنه وهو بدور على صيدلية. Okay, يموت, notice that it's in the subjunctive form because it's like, should his son die? Or, it's not like his son is dying, بيموت, he's dying. He's not he's dying. It's should his son die, or may his son die, or like, is his son supposed to die? It's kind of up to interpretation how you translate it, but yeah. So should his son die, وهو, while he, and in this case is referring to the father, of course. So while the father بدور is looking for صيدلية. Remember the وهو وأنا, this kind of construction can mean like while someone is doing something. So أنا بحكي وأنا بقرأ القراءة, like I speak while I'm reading the thing. I don't know, weird sentence, but yeah. Anyway, لعبت دور الأخت الكبيرة. Okay, لعب دور is a role. So لعب دور means to play a role. So you played the role of الأخت الكبيرة, of the older sister. خفي علينا. just an expression like give me a break. Because خف, it's related to خفيف, which means light. So خف علينا is like, yeah, just like give me a break, like leave me alone. And then she says, okay, طيب يلا. All right, let's go. بلاش نتأخر, so that we not be late. والماما, and mom, تقلق علينا. تقلق means to get stressed or anxious or worried. So, okay, let's go, so that we not be late and mom get worried about us. And then lastly, بس نفسي أفهم, but I want to understand. كيف كنت راح تطلع معهم? How were you going to leave with them? Okay, why did I want to put the pin in the thing earlier and come back to it? Because here we see a fantastic example that I hope is not cut off by my camera. But look at what's happening up here. كيف كنت بدك تطلع? And down here we have كيف كنت راح تطلع. Well, I just wanted to show you this because these sentences mean the exact same thing. كيف كنت بدك تطلع? كيف كنت راح تطلع? Both of those mean how were you going to leave? So remember, كنت means I was, but it can also mean, or it's used to form the past continuous tense. So كنت أحكي, I was speaking. حكيت, I spoke. كنت أحكي, I was speaking. So even though بدك and especially راح are not sort of traditional verbs, if you do use كنت, it does still form the past continuous. So راح تطلع means you are going to go. كنت راح تطلع means you were going to go. Pretty, very straightforward, just as it is in English. And likewise, كنت بدك تطلع means you were going to go. Now, as I said before, بدك can mean you want to do something or you will do something. Now, first thing I want to show you, to point out, is that remember, as I said before, if the conjugations are different, then you're definitely talking about wanting. Because if it's بدو أدله, it's he wants me to show him. There's no way that it could be a future tense, right? So notice that in this case, though, down here we have بدك تطلع. Here it's the same. So in the sentence above, it can only mean he wants. It can't mean he will, because I'm the one who's going to do something. I'm the one who's going to guide him. So there, it's definitely want. Here, it can be either, right? بدك تطلع can mean you want to go or you will go. Sorry, this actually means to leave or to go up or to go out, not just to go in a very neutral sense, but I'm just saying to go because it's sort of simpler. Anyway, you can substitute with بدك تروح or whatever you want. Anyway, so in this case, it means the same as down here where we use راح. I'm really just trying to emphasize that بدك and راح or بدو and whatnot, those can really be interchangeable. Now, how do we know that in this sentence, كنت بدك تطلع doesn't mean you wanted to go with them? Well, you don't really. You don't really know for sure, sort of. It's kind of just based on context, right? Like, how were you wanting to go, or how did you want to go with them in the car? You could say that, but I think based on context, it's pretty clear that it's more like, how were you going to do that? Because I don't think that Sana necessarily like wanted to exactly, but he was going to, just to help or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of subjective, right? But I did want to point out though that كنت بدي أطلع means I wanted to go out, but hypothetically you could, again, not necessarily in this case, but you could mean it with a meaning of desire. So بدي تليفون, كنت بدي تليفون. I want a phone, I wanted a phone. كنت بدي. So this is how you put بدي in the past tense with كنت. Let's give it. It's okay. So here's another example. If I'm talking about something like أرتاح, so أرتاح means to rest. So بدي أرتاح means I want to rest. If I say كنت بدي أرتاح, بس كان لازم أروح, you can probably assume that what I mean is I wanted to rest, but I had to go. I mean, you could translate it as I was going to rest, but I had to go. You could. But again, it just depends on context. But as you can see, like, just depending on what you're talking about, like, كنت بدي أرتاح sounds more like I wanted to rest, whereas كنت بدي أطلع معهم بالسيارة sounds more like, especially in this, because of the situation, it sounds more like I was going to do that. Whereas maybe if I'm talking about my friends and like, oh, I wanted to go out with them, كنت بدي أطلع معهم. Yeah, like I wanted to go. Yeah, see that I immediately, my brain processes that as I wanted to go with them. Whereas here, I think more like, how were you going to do that? And that's underscored by the fact that she used the exact same phrasing at the end of in this last sentence, except instead of بدك, she uses راح. Same exact phrasing, but just a different word. And again, it just shows you that بدك can have this meaning. Anyway, now we've covered pretty much everything that has to do with بدو, بدك, بدي. Again, in summary, if you use it with a verb, it can mean you want to do something or you will do something. But in order for it to mean you will do something, it has to have the same conjugation بدو as the verb it modifies. If you want to say I want to do something or someone wants someone else to do something, then you can mix and match. Then you have more flexibility. But in the future tense meaning, it has to be the same. So it can mean either future tense or desire. Now, if you use it with a noun, so if you use بدو as a verb in itself, with an object, some kind of noun or something, then it means either to want or to need. And which one it means just kind of depends on context. Sometimes you might want to use the verb أحتاج, which is the actual verb to need. It's not that common. It's not that أحتاج is rare. It's just that it is more like if you want to specifically say that I need something, like for example, I need a new phone for work. I mean, if you really want to emphasize that it's not just that I want a new phone, but like it is necessary, right? It's necessary. Then I would use أحتاج. But otherwise, بدي is fine. And just again, maybe just be careful just to make it not sound rude if you say like شو بدك, especially, yeah, I wouldn't say شو بدك to say what do you need, especially because that sounds more like what do you want. And you might want to say what do you want, but it definitely doesn't sound like what do you need, because it doesn't sound it's not very soft, So anyway, that's pretty much all I had to say about that. I hope you enjoyed this format. I mean, basically it was the annotated transcript video as I normally do it, but really emphasizing this topic, and I really focused on that. So I'm going to, try to kind of do that more in the future. Even though it's still a long video, but I hope that clarified any doubts you have. That is everything you ever will need to know about بدو, بدي, and so on. And without further ado, I will end this video and I will see you next time.
اهلا حبايبي وشكرا للجماعه اللي بيحضروا القناه. اذا بدكم تكملوا تشوفوا هالفيديوز اعملوا سبسكرايب، واذا شفتوني مؤخرا تفضلوا روحوا شوفوا الفيديوز الماضيه بالبلاي ليست، وتذكروا اني عملت مصادر لتعلم اللهجه الفلسطينيه تقدروا تلاقوها بالموقع تبعي اللي مكتوب تحت بالديسكربشن. ونشوفكم المره الجايه.